everybody, this is Coach Mac with Union Softball. We've had the opportunity just to speak and encourage the athletes, and hopefully more than just that, but I just wanted to kind of have a different perspective for this. We have two different types of environments going on, and so I'll let him introduce himself, but it's going to be exciting. So
I'm Coach Matt, one of the assistant softball coaches at Union, and I agree with Coach Mac that this has obviously been a very different time for a lot of people, and so many different people are in different circumstances right now. And even though we still communicate on a daily basis and still have a lot of the same goals and mindset for our team, we're seeing this through a different set of lenses. So we wanted to share those perspectives with you today.
So I wanted to start in 1 Timothy. I think 1 Timothy is awesome. You have Paul, who is ministering to Timothy, who is known to kind of be a little bit more timid, a little bit scared, and so it just kind of reminded me of what's going on now. And as Paul encourages Timothy just to step up and be bold, we want to do the same with you. So in 1 Timothy 4 verse 11, it says, "Command and teach these things. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Do not neglect your gift, which was given you through prophecy, when the body of elders laid their hands on you." So when I read that, first, it was awesome because we have different age groups throughout campus, right? Different age groups throughout our sports, throughout our coaching staffs. And so it's just a great reminder that age doesn't matter. God's going to work through you no matter what, as long as you're faithful, and he's going to be in it and totally just make you bold in what you're doing. And I think we forget in what capacity that is because we focus so much on our talents instead of the spiritual gifts that God's given us. And so we get wrapped up in hitting a home run or sinking a free throw, or, hitting what is it in golf?
A
great shot. Okay. Coach Chandler, you're going to have to help me on those. But we get so focused on those that we forget to spend time and slow down to feel and understand the gifts that God's given us. And so right now, I've seen so many videos on Twitter, or so many videos that are just floating around about athletes working on their craft. Hey coach, today I've gotten 20 cuts in, or hey, check this out, it's a recruiting profile, or hey, all these things. And we're spending time with those instead of maybe honing in on crafting our spiritual gift, because just as much as we need to practice the other athletic side, it's extremely important to practice our other gifts. And so for me, it was like, okay, so yeah, coaching, that might be a talent, right? But what is the gift in that? And so you go to Romans, and it really helps explain that. And it says, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it's to encourage, then give encouragement. If it's giving, then give generously. If it's to lead, do it diligently. And if it's to show mercy, do it cheerfully. It doesn't say anything in there, hey, go be a good athlete, or hey, go work out 5 times a day, or whatever it is. It's calling us to do more than just the physical side of it. And I think for me in this time, that's something that I've really had to grasp and really trust in God to know that I'm more than just a softball coach. And I hope right now for our athletes, or for teachers, or whoever it is, that we've allowed God to use this time to teach us more than just focusing on what we're missing, when in reality, God is what should be the focus of this time. I've had a lot of conversations with different athletes about how the days are all starting to blend together. Sometimes it's doing that for me too, but I think when we don't utilize the time that we have to sharpen that spiritual gift, we're wasting time and an opportunity to do a lot of really cool things and to seek Christ. And so the last verse that I want to read, because it's one that's always been a staple for me, it says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer." And that's Romans 12:12. And I think right now that's more prevalent than anything, because when we have Christ in our life, when we seek it, even if for me, I'm at home, my family's 10 hours away, all of our athletes are gone. I mean, you can ask Coach Matt, when our athletes leave, I'm like really sad. I'm really, really sad. And so during that, I have to figure out what I'm joyful about, and Christ is that. When I have Christ in my life, when I'm focused, when I'm reading in the scripture, that's when I'm most joyful. Patient in affliction. All this going right now, we have to be patient. A lot of the times we want answers now. We want responses now. And so I think if we can just focus on being patient and know that God's in control, everything else is like, all right, now what? What now? What do you want me to do, God? And then the last one is faithful in prayer. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it talks about taking captive every thought that we have and turning it to Christ. And so throughout the day, if you're struggling with anxiety or anything else that you might have, I encourage you to just flip that focus to Christ, because when we take those thoughts captive and we pray about it and we encourage each other, all of these things will start to come together. And I know that's been big for me since I'm more of a, by myself right now and moving through that in a different light. So
my perspective has been a little bit different as a husband and a parent of 3. It's obviously been a different time, but there's been so many blessings that have come out of the past 3 weeks. I've been able to spend more time with my kids. I've been able to serve my wife better. And so honestly, I haven't been bored once. I haven't had a loss of things to do, which I know is completely different for other people. And it's not to dismiss that a lot of people are really struggling right now with their health, with their jobs, their finances. And so people are really struggling right now, but at the same time, I think it helps to try to find the silver lining, to find the blessing. And so for me, that's been pretty evident, just getting to pour into my wife and my kids. And so I've really enjoyed that. But I've also enjoyed the time that I've been able to spend in scripture each morning and what God is teaching me through that. I'm actually reading through Isaiah right now, which fits perfectly in a lot of ways with what we're going through. I think about as a parent and how I try to discipline my children. And I think a loving parent tries to find creative ways to discipline their kids, as opposed to just arbitrarily punishing them with a spanking or a grounding. We try to find ways to really sell the point and to drive the point home of what we're trying to get them to learn, while at the same time we're not trying to alienate our kids from us. We're actually trying to draw them closer to us, and that can be tricky sometimes. But God is awesome at doing that all throughout Scripture, Old Testament and New Testament. And He does it in the Old Testament not just for the Israelites, but also for the foreign nations. And so it talks about in Isaiah chapter 19 how God plans to discipline the Egyptians. And He hits them where it counts. And so there's 3 things that the Egyptians took a lot of pride in. Number 1 was their God, which was Baal. Okay, the all-powerful Baal. The other one was their natural resource, which was the Nile River. And then thirdly was their wisdom. They considered themselves to be the wisest nation. And so God, as He often does, gets to the heart of the matter, and He hits them where it hurts to get them to realize that He is more powerful than Baal, that He controls all of their resources, and that He is more wise than the wisest person on earth. And so that's where He hits the Egyptians. And He doesn't do it just to do it. He does it because He wants to draw even the Egyptians closer to Him. And if you skip ahead to chapter 19, verse 21, it says, "And the Lord will make Himself known to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians will know the Lord in that day and worship with sacrifice and offering." And then you skip ahead. "They will return to the Lord, and He will listen to their pleas for mercy and heal them." So God's ultimate goal in disciplining His children is, number 1, to bring glory to Himself, and number 2, to draw His children closer to Him. And so I don't know if the coronavirus is a form of discipline from God. It could be. It might just be the result of a sinful, fallen world that we live in, where sickness is very real and death is very real. But it's beside the point, because God is trying to teach us something through this regardless. And so how has God hit our country and us personally where it hurts, where it counts? How has He gotten to the heart of the matter? Well, our country takes a lot of pride in 3 things. Number 1 is our health. Number 2 is our wealth. and number 3, our entertainment or sports in particular. And so it's funny how over the course of 2 weeks, God essentially stripped all 3 of those things away from our country. He took away our health, he took away our wealth, and he took away our sports. And before this happened, I was talking to some of our athletes. If I had told you 2 months ago that God could find a way to take away sports from the planet like that, you wouldn't believe it. But he essentially did that. And I think in a lot of ways, we idolize athletics, sports at every level, from t-ball all the way up to professional sports. And again, whether this was a specific form of discipline from God or not, he's taken those things away from us. And he wants us to, number 1, see his glory through it. But secondly, he wants to draw us closer to him by taking those things away from us. And whether he gives those things back or not, my prayer for myself, my family, my students, my student athletes, is that during this time they would realize the power of God, the glory of God, and how trivial those things truly are compared to him and his glory, and how true joy comes from him and not from those things. Those 3 things are great and they are blessings, but at the same time, if you take all those things away and you're left only with God, then you have everything you need and hopefully everything that you want. So that's something that God has been teaching me through Isaiah. The last verse that I'll close with is in Hebrews, where it talks specifically about discipline, and it starts in chapter 12, verse 5. It says, "My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the ones he loves, and he chastises every son whom he receives." And if you skip ahead, it says, "For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant," which is the situation we're in right now, "but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." So if you allow God to use this time to teach you something, he will. And that's what I'm praying for myself and for my athletes right now.
Well, we hope that this is something that can encourage you. Again, I've said it before, if y'all need anything or if there's anything that we can help you with, just reach out. We'll be praying for you. And in James, it says, "Come near to God and he will come near to you." And like Coach Matt just said, that's definitely going to be our prayer throughout the rest of this. So hope you'll have a great rest of the day. Roo, baby.
Hope to see you soon.